This is very poorly lit. It will probably get brighter, but I can't say that for sure. So you just get what you get and you don't throw a fit. That's where we are. Okay. Hey, still coming to you on location. This is Remote Death of a Dream. Thank you so much for being here. I am still in South Dakota. This is the last day of coming to your remote. We will get back to official, beautiful audio. I'm so thankful for all of you, for your listening, for continuing to travel and do this life thing with me. Lots of amazing thoughts and expansion while kind of out traveling. So let's dive into our great thing right away. We're going to ground ourselves in our greatness. That's something we do every single day here. If you want to learn more about that, you can head over to nestinc.com. That's where you'll find the blog on greatness grounding. That'll give you some background on what this practice is and why we do it every day. So my great thing really has just been being present. That so often is my great thing, but today I'm going to expand a little bit on presence and why that's so important to me and how I was showing up in my life but was kind of presently unpresent. And so I'm going to actually expand a little bit on that today, but just being on this vacation and being fully here. And if you've ever gone somewhere, and typically as an Enneagram 7, we tend to want to go to the next thing, always looking for the next adventure, always wanting the next thing. And so we have a tendency to never really be anywhere because we're always seeking that next adventure. So for me, I can tell that I'm in a healthy state when I'm just truly present and valuing time and space there. And that looks like a lot of collective silence for me. But for me, being in rest and in health really comes with silence and reflection and just sitting in my thoughts. And so much of my life I spent in being unpresent and avoiding silence, like actual avoidance of silence was pretty much my top my top activity in life. Like, please just avoid everyone being quiet. I can't handle that. That makes me anxious. When that happens, I just start to speak, and I'm not even saying things that make sense or that I really want to do, and I just start expanding, and there's no real reason, but I can't stand the silence and the non-movement. And so that was always a struggle point for me. And it's something that I have to stay ever aware of. And I can tell that when I go to those spaces where I'm super uncomfortable, I just get super chatty and it's hard for me to sit in silence. It's probably because I'm in a discomfort zone, or I've even gone into a lower performing type of my Enneagram. So that's something that I'm trying to stay ever present with. And so anytime that I can feel my full presence in any space that I'm in, it feels great. And this was the first vacation that I've taken, probably in my lifetime, where I've just been okay with wherever we're at, with silence, with growth, with expansion. And I've just allowed myself space to be there. And it feels amazing, right? I'm not trying to fill holes constantly. I'm not trying to fill the silence. I'm not trying to fill everything with the next adventure, with the next thing. And I can't say that my life has always been like that. It kind of has always been like this need to keep filling. And that has taken on many different shapes. Sometimes that looks like filling with food. Food for me is one of those vices, is one of those things that I could just fill major voids with. And so maybe I can't go on the next adventure, but maybe I can just be jonesing for the next meal so bad that I can't even think straight, because that's going to be the excitement for me. And I know a lot of times in my work life, that was one of the things. Like, okay, we'll just get to lunch. What's for lunch? What's for lunch? What's for lunch? And I think that was just my need for something to be different. That was exciting, right? And so food became that for me. And even when on vacation, sometimes, and I try to do vacations like this, since I am an Enneagram 7 and I do crave a lot of adventure and the next thing. And I know that that is me. I know that that's something that I'm going to struggle with when I am on vacation, when I am like in adventure zone, right? Where I'm like living my dream life. I try to keep it so I don't know what's coming. So I allow my Enneagram 1 husband to plan the trips, and he can know what's coming and he can know, but I try to keep myself as out of the loop as possible. So then I don't know what's coming next and I don't plan for what's coming next. I just let it happen, which really allows me space to enjoy and appreciate the places we are in, and not try to think about what's coming next and what exciting thing will come after this. And that's really helped in kind of guarding me from myself, from my own realities and my own tendencies to want to move on to the next thing before the first thing is over. So that's kind of how I've learned to help myself stay present in the moment. And sometimes that I love a good surprise. And so I have learned to structure vacations so everything is kind of a surprise, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think my biggest learning from this trip has just been the presence and how I have to kind of structure things now that I know more about myself, more about my own Enneagram number, more about how I show up in the world, and things that are going to help me stay in a healthy state and help guard me from an unhealthy state. And one of those things really is in not allowing myself space to become unpresent, to be able to kind of jump to the next thing and be thinking about the next exciting thing that we're going to do, so much that I don't even enjoy the vacation that we're on. So that's kind of how I do it. I would say, maybe if you don't have a significant other who can do the planning or do something like that, and you are Enneagram 7, bless us all, you could potentially just not make a plan, just go and kind of jump from adventure to adventure as you come upon it. And that's kind of how we run our vacations. They're not really planned out. We have a couple of destinations in mind, but generally we'll just get a car and go and come upon things as we see them. If that's a brook on the side of a mountain as we drive by and there's no cars at it, then we're going to stop and we're going to enjoy that, and we're going to go do that thing and take that chance. Don't mind my car turning on. I have to get lights back on. Okay, there we go. So that's kind of how we run things, and that really is according to my Enneagram number and my tendency to not be present. But I really felt super present on this entire vacation, and that was such a relief for me because it's not something that I'm very skilled at. Presence is not my gift to the world, and so it's super important though for me to focus on that and to show up in this way for myself and for my family. So that's my great thing. Go ahead and take time today to ground yourself in your greatness. That's really where you call out something that you feel great about. It's vital. It's so essential in the work of the world, of the fierce women who follow the Death of a Dream movement, who want more for their lives. This one thing will impact your life greatly. So do it. Okay. I'm not going to say it again. Just do it. You got it. So what I have begun to realize we're going to dive in. Okay, let me just say that. What I've begun to realize as I have been touring the great state of South Dakota, we've seen many things. We haven't seen all of the things, but we have seen quite a bit. And I realized two things on this trip. I realized a lot more than two things, but we're going to kind of expand on the two things. The first thing is you can just do whatever you want. Like, we visited so many monuments, so many huge things that, like, make no sense in this world at all. Zero. Like, why? Why would someone just decide that they're going to carve faces into the side of a mountain? Does that make sense to anyone? In the middle of South Dakota. It's actually not in the middle, really at all. But in South Dakota, they're just going to carve faces in a mountainside. The faces of presidents. Does that make sense to anyone? To anyone right here as you're listening to this? No, probably not. Do you want to know what else doesn't make sense? The fact that there's just a Corn Palace. That one kind of is in the middle of South Dakota. There's a Corn Palace, if you didn't realize it. I know it sounds like a crazy thing. Trust me, it is, but it's like made of corn. And what's even crazier is they change the corn out every year, as you would probably have to, because I'm sure that it gets weathered and eaten and all the things. But like, there's just a Corn Palace. Like a building, a huge building, completely decorated in corn and corn remnants. Yeah. So in my mind, as I'm looking and gazing at these wonderful things, and there were plenty of them, those were just two of the more absurd things that stood out to me. As I'm gazing at these things and I'm looking at them and I'm just like in awe of these things, more than anything, my mind is just thinking like, why don't more people just do things? Right? Like, in my mind, the world is made up of two people. The people who go build a corn palace because they're hell-bent on proving to the world that they are an agricultural state. What? Right? And the people who decide that they just want to make faces in a mountain, so they just go do it, blow up dynamite, do crazy stuff. Like, seriously, if you don't know much about Mount Rushmore, go ahead and learn more about how they carve those faces out, because it's insane. And then the other side of people are the ones who just never believe that whatever they want to do can happen. But like, here are two extremes of like just crazy stuff happening because people wanted to make it happen, right? And they weren't going to stop until it happened. And like literally not stopping. People were not stopping because no one would say, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Take some dynamite up there. Take some crazy chairs and some crazy things and go get that done. Here's all the money you'll need. That didn't happen, right? But they still made it happen because they wanted to. And so that's one of the things that I realized. Like, people can just have a vision for something that they want to do, and then they can just go do it. Like, that's the beauty of the world that we live in. That's seriously the beauty of the times that we live in. And that's the most important side of this, because yes, no question, there are certain realities that exist within what I'm saying to you right now, right? There are certain things that do hold some people back, that wouldn't hold other people back, that do impact your ability to do things. But right now, with the amount of free platforms that are out there, with the amount of free things that exist, right now could be the time for you. Could be the thing for you. Could be the thing that make that thing happen. And I think so many times we are just scared. And yet, I don't think that we should be. I think, honestly, if all of these things exist, Corn Palaces and Mount Rushmores and Crazy Horse and all of these things, all of these beautiful things, if all of those exist, they exist, if for nothing more, than to tell us that your dreams are possible. And now more than ever, right? Because you don't have to travel on horseback to Washington, D.C. to see if you can get more money, right? You could just create your own nonprofit, and you could put it out there, and you could get funding, and you could create an Instagram, and you could create a YouTube channel and a podcast, and all those things could be free, and they'd be a way for you to get your voice out there. And they'd be a way for people to start supporting your cause, right? Hustle is what is standing between you and your dream. And I want you to know that whatever you want is possible. So my next kind of thought that came from this trip was just how crazy it is to me that I lived my life for so long, like, essentially word vomiting on people, but I don't think that it's just that. Like, the word vomit is such kind of a disgusting way to describe what I'm trying to say. So imagine for a second with me a watercolor painting. And you put down your first watercolor, and there's a lot of water in it, and there's like this one color, and maybe it's red, and you start with red, and then you could dip your paintbrush into that same color, and it kind of bleeds into the next one. And if you keep doing that, they keep bleeding, but eventually all the color just turns to gray or to black or brown, right, depending on which colors you use. But eventually they all bleed so much together that they all become the same color. And that's what I realized on this trip, is that that's really where I spent a majority of my time. Like, I had these big dreams and thoughts that I wanted to speak, and I wanted to say things, and I wanted to write, and I wanted to do all of that. And when I didn't kind of pick that color, right? When I didn't show up as that thing, I kept picking a new color. And every time that I would get the opportunity to like go do that thing, or to kind of branch off, but I get a chance to speak or inspire as something else, I'd be adding a new color. And I essentially all of the colors, represent the million different hats that I wore along the way, trying to combined effort get what I was going after, right? Trying to pull all these things together, trying to make it all happen, but not really putting any one color into the world. I was picking a billion different colors, just trying to make them all come together and fit. But what I figured out is that in picking all of those different things, and it's okay, right? It's okay to be a mom and a wife or a spouse or whatever. It's okay to be that. It's okay to be a dog mom. It's okay to be, an employee. It's okay to be a coach. It's okay to wear all those different hats as long as you aren't showing up like I was. And I was showing up trying to fill voids with all the different things, and none of them really allowed me to fully express myself. All of them allowed me to express myself in a different way, in a different color, but at the end of the day, it all just turned to gray. I kind of got to this place where everything had just lost all of its luster. I had no color left anymore. I was just showing up in this world as like, oh, okay, well, I must have messed up because I think you're supposed to be happier. And everybody's saying be happy, be excited, and I just am not. And I don't get it, and I want to be that for everyone because I know they want that for me and they see that for me more than I see it for myself, unfortunately. But I couldn't. And I know that it's because of this thing. It's because when you're trying to get what you want from a million different places and nothing is filling that void, nothing is really giving you that thing, and nothing is ever going to be that dream. As hard as you try to market yourself towards it, trust me, I'm real good at that. And it caused me to just show up as nothing at all, right? As the gray version. And I know, I can see the painting happening right in front of me. And the moment that I started actually standing up and saying the things that I wanted and then just doing them was the moment that my picture became a lot more clear, was the moment that all of a sudden I was showing up as the color that I wanted, and I was showing up as separate colors in the painting, not as something that had just bled together in a gray in existence. Right? I finally stopped just showing up as, and the grayness to me really just represents fineness, right? And I talk about middle class mindset and that's where we're headed. And I think so many times that's what we become. We spread ourselves so thin that everything's just okay and nothing is really all that wonderful in life. And to me, once I started planting my stake in the ground, once I really started deciding that this was the direction that I was going to go, that this really was going to be my dream and what I wanted to do, and I knew that this is what I wanted to do all along, I just never really gave myself enough credit to believe that I could make this happen, right? But we started the podcast with me saying, like, you could just want to carve faces in the side of the mountain, and if you just don't stop moving, you can do it. And think back then, obviously you had to have a lot of things going for you. Money and stature and certainly white maleness at that point in time in order to get anything done. But now those same things don't hold true. And trust me, some of them do, especially depending on where you live. But you can create substance and following and numbers without all those other things that I talked about, right? You can create your own following in your own way of building this and supporting you. And so those same things don't really exist anymore. They do, but they don't. You can create your own community, your own following. You can do that. And so I hadn't really ever given myself space to believe that I could do any of those things, space to think that that was possible. And so I just kept kind of adopting everything and nothing as an attempt to show up in this world as me, but not really. Right? As the me that everybody was willing to accept, not necessarily the me that I wanted to be, right? So I started my watercolor painting with red, and then I would add in green, and I would add in lime green, and I would add in all these other colors, but none of them were really me. And I think, the word vomit side that I was talking about would be like every chance. Every single chance, if I was on a walk, if I was in a meeting, if I was somewhere, anytime that someone would give me a voice or a stage or a chance to talk, it would all come out at once and feverishly run out of me because I wasn't really filling that void like this. This is every single day. And now that I don't have to take my shot, every chance that I get, right? Even when I'm on vacation, it's like, oh no, oh here. And that would have been me in the past. Like, okay, let's fill this silence. Let's fill this. Let's talk. Let's do this. Let's go. Let's whatever that is, right? And I would constantly be searching for opportunities to play that out, to live that moment, to be able to show up fully as myself, but I would always be called back, right? I would always have to go back to the grayness. I would always have to go back to the fine, but I would have these amazing moments where I got to be this person, where I got to live this life, where I got to say the things, where I got to do the things, and then I'd be like, okay, but it can't be like that all the time. You can't just do that, right? You're freaking everybody out, you weirdo. And I'm sure I freak a lot of people out here on this podcast. But I think there are people who do need it and who do want something like this. And so you just have to go. You have to go, and you have to trust your gift, and you have to trust the things that you know to be true, right? If there are people who can trust themselves enough to build a corn palace in the middle of South Dakota, you can trust yourself enough to write that book, to interview for that job, to go back to school, to keep standing up for yourself. You realize your color that you paint on this world, whatever color that is, it matters. Please do not adopt so many colors trying to show up in this world as what everybody else wants you to show up in. You get to choose. You get to choose. Right? You get to pick. And I don't think that I ever gave myself enough space to truly believe that, but I am believing it now and forevermore. You owe it to yourself to show up, to leave your mark, and to leave it the color you want. Don't just accept grayness. Don't just accept fine. You deserve more. You deserve more than fine. You deserve the greatness in life. The one that you close your eyes and you dream about, that's the one that I want you to start working on today. That's the one that I want you to start going after, because it is possible. There are faces carved into the side of mountains. Okay? If you have a dream, a vision, a life that you want to create, start working on it today. There will be nothing more. And just start working on it. I'm not saying go do it, go pitch your book. Just start working on it. Every day, do a little bit. Just see where your energy goes when you start working on that thing. Right? See how it feels. Sometimes we don't even test that. Okay? Do something today in relation to your dreams. As always, you're smart, you're strong, you're beautiful. What are you going to do? Change the world. Oh, sorry. We done.